My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Eli here. And, one of the drawbacks to being self-employed is the health benefits or the lack thereof. Most of us that are getting out there on our own, whether we are solopreneurs, small businesses, not really working for a lot of people, when we get out there and we start this thing, that is one of the big things that people get scared about and aren't really sure how to navigate that idea, which is the health benefits, the insurance, all that kind of stuff that generally when you're working for a corporation has been covered for you. And it can be kind of a scary place. I know a lot of people that really they don't know where to start with it. So today I am excited to have somebody she's a client of mine, but she's also become a really good friend of mine, Kelly Dickerson. And she is an independent health and life insurance broker. She is here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, although she works with people all over the place. And she specializes in helping individuals, solopreneurs, and small businesses protect the most important things, their health, their life, and getting all the supplemental insurance, all the things that they really need to be having that we should have just in case life happens. So with that said, Kelly, thanks so much for hanging out today.
Thanks, Eli. I'm really happy and just excited to be a guest on your show. I know we had talked about it for a little while, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity to get to talk about something that obviously I'm passionate about.
Yeah, well, we've talked about you being on the show before, and, I know several people that have been on the show before, but we've never quite made it happen. And I finally was like, you know what, let's just schedule it. Let's just get it on the calendar. Here's a link. Go pick a time. Because you and I talk almost weekly. I mean, we're part of Success Champions, which I talk about quite a bit because that's where I meet a lot of people. I don't really get out much. So, Success Champions is my outlet to the real world. And, that's how we met originally, was through the Success Champions group. And, I was really excited about what you're doing, not so much because insurance itself is not the most exciting thing in the world, but you are one of the easiest people to talk to that I have met in this industry. And you make it very, you come from a place of just trying to help people as opposed to pitch a product. And that's one of the things that I liked about you. That's why I think you and I get along so well, because we kind of think along the same lines. And because of that, I figured let's share you with other people, because people have the questions. They don't know what to do. So start off I gave the bio to you, but kind of give us an idea of who is it that you actually help? Who are your best clients? And what are the problems that they have when they come to you?
Sure. Well, I do work with individuals and families as well as solopreneurs, and especially the small businesses that have up to about 50 employees. I would say the people I've been most helpful to recently are those who are self-employed or who have a 1099 income. And the reason why is through a great connection I have, kind of happen upon these wonderful group benefits plans that are available to people who fit kind of those criteria. And it opens the door to essentially group benefits for even solopreneurs and their families, onto business owners who might have employees but are looking for something just for themselves and their family, and maybe looking into other benefits for their employees. So that's one group that has been really fun to work with, because there have been honestly really great health insurance options for them at affordable pricing. And then beyond that, I would say the small businesses. I feel like sometimes especially the smaller groups get almost forgotten about, because a lot of health insurance brokers, went to work with the larger businesses, and everybody has their own niche, but I feel like I can help and add value to the smaller businesses through looking into a lot of different options. That market has actually expanded even within the last year or two in terms of the insurance carriers who are offering benefits to those smaller groups.
And that's cool that you do that. And I think, you're right on the fact a lot of people that are in that insurance benefits package world, a lot of times they truly are focused on how do I get the big boys? They're looking for they're looking for the whales all the time. And the reality is so many people, they don't focus on the small fish, the ones that are just the solopreneurs, the small business owners that maybe they have 5, 10 employees or less. It's not that many.
Yeah.
There's not enough people that are actually focusing on helping those guys out. And so I love the fact that you're doing that and you're focusing on that as your niche. So what is it that brought you into this? Because I know you've got a different background and you haven't been doing this really that long, really. So kind of tell us, how did you find this and how long have you been doing this now as opposed to what you were doing before?
Sure, that's a really good question, and it's really funny when I start talking with people because an interesting thing about my background was I was actually a physical therapist for a very long time, and I loved that career. It was really rewarding, and honestly, I thought I would be doing it probably until my body stopped working like it should, and I'd maybe look into other options. But I would say, like a lot of us in different forms and fashions, my life kind of changed in terms of what I needed. And the biggest theme was I wanted to have more control of my schedule and my time. And part of that factor is to be more accessible to my parents who are getting older and, just needing a little more help. And then also for myself, so I could, work from home a little bit, but still go out and meet people. And that was a big driver. And so I started giving a lot of thought to what I could do where I could still help people and feel like I had a really good purpose. And I guess one of the reasons or the ways that I kind of led down this path was actually through my sister-in-law, who's also a health insurance agent. And she kind of, to her credit, started training me and gave me a good foundation to start from. And then from there, I branched off and have worked hard to form my own connections, get connected with general agencies, and get honestly contracted with a lot of different insurance carriers. And so my purpose, I guess, or my driver behind that has been really to meet people with where they are. So I could talk with an individual or a family or even a small business owner, and depending on what their current situation is, they may want to get good health benefits, but they may not be able to afford it. And so I've really tried hard to find good alternative options, I would say, that still provide really good coverage, but are a little lighter on the budget. And I feel like everybody's situation is different. I think that also comes from my physical therapy background of trying to really listen and understanding that everybody has different factors and then trying to problem solve.
Okay, awesome. And I love that you've got that. You said something that I think we should dive a little bit more into it, because you're talking about, being creative and figuring out what options are out there. Let's talk about the solopreneur, because I know personally, I know a lot of my listeners are solopreneurs. So maybe they've got a team, but a lot of times their team is actually outsourced. So they're not even in the US. So starting with that standpoint, what are some of the things that we should be looking at, both from, questions to ask an insurance person, what kind of things, like what are things that are available that are still in that quote unquote affordable, which of course is always subjective, but
yes.
What are some of the things that are available for us? And most importantly, let's going to back it off a little bit because my brain's going a million miles an hour here.
Yeah.
What are some of the questions that people should be asking or thinking about to get some kind of coverage when they are a solo by themselves, or even maybe it's a like family, husband and wife working together, your team, something like that, but they don't have necessarily employees yet? What are some of the things that are available, and what kind of questions, most importantly, what are the kind of questions they should be asking or thinking of to help them get some of the coverage that they wouldn't get otherwise?
Right. No, thanks for asking that, because I try to provide a lot of education to people, and whether they talk with me or they talk with someone else, I think it's always valuable for them to have a good starting point or a good foundation. And so some of the things I always like to tell people to ask when they're speaking with a health insurance broker is, what options do you have? Are you limited? Are you captive to an insurance carrier? And if they are, that's okay. They still might offer really great products, but I think it's important to know as a consumer that they might be limited in the products or the coverages that they can offer because of that. So that would be one question. Another question would be, where would this health insurance cover me? For example, if I was traveling out of state on the weekend, would this provide coverage, or would it only provide coverage if I had an emergency? And then I think it's really important for the health insurance agent or broker to make sure that they're asking a lot of questions in terms of doctors, hospitals, and medications to check to be in network. If they're not really asking that and researching the plans to make sure those providers or medications are in network, that's kind of a red flag because it will cause a lot of problems. Once you get your coverage in place, it won't cover you as well as you think. So I think those are good starting points. And then asking, you could ask questions about what their process is for following up with you. Are they checking in on you on an annual basis to see if anything's changed? And then when people are looking at health insurance options, I like to educate solopreneurs that, hey, in general, all of us have these types of options. So one would be the marketplace. I think most of us know that that's a place where all of us can go to find major medical insurance. And to be honest, that's sometimes the only option for people depending on their health history. So I tell people it's a great thing that came about, after Obamacare was enacted. Is it perfect? No. Is it the best solution for everybody? Absolutely not. But it's a good option. And then from there are many plans that are true health plans and are available to those who are solopreneurs just because they are self-employed, and then down to supplemental coverages that could be great in terms of protecting somebody against a catastrophic accident or a catastrophic illness and could really fit with their budget. I think like a lot of things in our, throughout our life, our needs and our budgets change. So those things are going to evolve over time. And I think that's why it's important to have a health insurance broker who will stay in contact with you and reassess what you need.
I love the way you put that. And you brought up something that I hadn't even really thought about, like talking about, are you covered out of state?
Yeah.
I didn't even really think about that because I know a lot of people that are digital nomads. So from that standpoint, it's like, okay, you're not covered out of the country. You kind of like, okay, we got to figure that one out. But I didn't realize that you have to actually ask that question to make sure if you're covered state to state as well. And maybe I just don't know. And everybody else is listening to this going, okay, Eli, you're an idiot. You should know better.
No.
But the reality is, like, I know a lot of people that do like full-time RVing now. And so they may have a home base, but I think that's a great thing that people should be paying attention to is like, okay, you need to ask that question. Am I covered? And what does that look like before you sign it? Because of the fact that, like, for me, I wouldn't have thought about that. Honestly,
yeah,
I would think that, well, I'm in the United States. I should be good. I mean, obviously I gotta, if I move, I'm going to have to change things like a primary provider and things like that. But you would think you would still be covered to some degree, but bringing that up, I'm like, okay, maybe you're not. So,
right. Well, and it's important to note that you are covered for emergencies. So that's a great thing. If you do have health insurance, no matter where you are in the country, you can, be treated for emergencies. It's just, there are certain other things, like if you get an ear infection, a sinus infection, and you really need to get in to see the doctor, or COVID or something like that, then you're going to have a little bit of limitation. You'll probably have to pay out of pocket for those types of things.
Right. Okay. So you brought up something else that I think is really important to talk about for a couple of minutes is like the supplemental stuff, and kind of explain what that is versus your primary insurance that you would have, and what are some examples of a couple of the things that we should probably be looking at, especially as solopreneurs.
Sure. Now, I'm really glad you asked that question because I kind of, forget sometimes from day to day that a lot of people haven't really heard much about supplemental policies. They've heard the term, but I think more people think about Medicare supplements. But when we're talking about people who are under 65 years old, supplemental policies range from things like accident plans, cancer plans, critical illness, even down to dental and vision. And then they have also hospital indemnity plans. And so when I talk with people, sometimes people will just get supplemental policies, especially the more robust ones, to kind of act like their main health insurance. Sometimes when they feel like they're pretty healthy, they barely go to the doctor, and they're okay paying self-pay for doctor's visits and things like that. And especially when the normal health insurance doesn't fit their budget. Other people will actually have a major medical insurance plan in place. And through the conversations I'm having with them, and again, trying to work with their particular health situation, their budget, the coverages they need, we may determine that a higher deductible health plan fits their budget better and they're pretty healthy, so it's appropriate. But a lot of times I'll talk with them about possibly supplementing it with like a small accident or critical illness policy that would kind of fill in the gaps to help pay them cash directly to help with their medical bills, especially like the deductible and out-of-pocket maximums if they did, say, have like a bad accident or got diagnosed with cancer. So it would kind of bridge the gap between where they're paying, where their insurance is paying for everything from where they're having to pay out of pocket. So that can really help people. And also it helps them pay their bills. They can use a lot of these policies. They can use the cash benefits to pay their mortgage, their rent. They can use it to pay groceries, utility bills, so on and so forth. And so it adds a little extra financial protection.
Nice. And those are, and I'm just going to pull one name out because I know a lot of people have heard the term. That's something, would something like Aflac cover that kind of idea in some of those situations?
Yes, that's a good question. So Aflac is definitely in that supplemental category, and they do have great policies. They are more, I would say, geared towards businesses. They have some plans, of course, available to individuals, but yes, that's a great example of a supplemental policy.
And just for the record, is that something that you offer? Is that something you're part of, or yes or no?
I actually work with an insurance carrier that's very similar to Aflac, and it's called Combined, and they're very similar. And they really help. They really help provide benefits to employees. On a side note, the really cool thing about those types of benefits is the employer doesn't have to contribute anything. And they're basically opening the door for their employees to get group benefit rates on some of these policies, and it can really help the employees and obviously help with employee retention.
Right. Nice. Okay, cool. I like that. And the reason I wanted to ask that is because I'm familiar with Aflac. It's been around forever, and a lot of people know him because of the duck and all that kind of stuff. So I brought up the name, but I also wanted to clarify, like, if for you have a different company you work with that is very similar to it, then that's great to know as well, because you don't want to just like, oh, well, we need this one when there might be other options. And I like that because that's one of the things too, is that people are coming to you not just to sign up for something. It's like, you are an advisor. You are there to help guide them through, okay, this is what you got. This is what you need. This is what's not going to be covered, those kind of things. I think a really good question would be, if I, as a solopreneur, what are some of the things that I could be looking at just for me? And what is the difference of that? Like, say, for instance, you do have one or two employees. Where do the doors change, and what are the options that are out there for people? And definitely feel free to be kind of vague on this one, as far as, because I know compliance related stuff of what you can't really give advice until you're talking to somebody specifically. But what are some of the things that, as a solopreneur, here's what you need to look at, versus I have, under 10 employees. I would like to be able to do something, but I'm afraid I can't afford it. What are some of the things we can talk about with that?
Sure. That's a great question. So for solopreneurs, they do not qualify for what I call traditional group benefits. And the reason why is kind of the guidelines to qualify for group benefits is a minimum of 2 employees. And so I tell people often that could be a husband and wife who are running a business and own a business together. There are certain carriers that will work with a husband and wife team. But the door for traditional group benefits includes many different options. Some, carriers have entered that scene, and they've really done a great job providing almost like a menu of benefits and types of plans for the employees. But as solopreneurs, obviously, we don't fit that criteria of that minimum of 2. And so it puts us back into the category of either finding individual insurance, the marketplace being one of those examples, kind of bundled supplemental policies. There are very good ones out there as well that I offer people. And then a third option, which has been really helpful to a lot of the solopreneurs I've talked with, I would say in the last 4 to 5 months, have been these group benefits plans that are available to solopreneurs, as well as business owners who do have some employees. And so in that category is also included anybody with a 1099 income. So it could be somebody whose main job is a W-2 job, but maybe they don't offer great benefits, and they may have like a side hustle or gig work that provides 1099 income. They would also qualify for these plans. And the great thing is, because this group is essentially relatively healthy people that are allowed to join this group, it keeps the rates down. And they have 2 different insurance carriers you can choose from that both provide national networks. So that's a really great benefit to people, like we were talking about earlier. And there's all kinds of different coverage options available in terms of deductibles and trying to meet people's budget. So it's been really helpful to a lot of the people I've talked with.
No, that is great. And that's one of the things you and I were talking about that at one of the mixers that we were hanging out at. You were talking about these group plans that are designed as like you're actually coming in just like you were part of a company that has the same benefits. So you get those kind of discounts, or at least somewhat similar, even though you are actually just in your own business. So that's kind of cool, because I remember years ago that kind of stuff didn't exist. It's
Right.
like you were, it's like you got a business group or yourself. That's it. There's no in between there.
Yeah.
And so I love that kind of stuff is capable to get out there. Now, you brought up something about the marketplace that I think is kind of important for people to think about too, is the marketplace is kind of designed as a self-serve kind of process in itself. But do you help people like go through that process? And if somebody's trying to get that figured out, because I remember like I got emails from the government saying, you need to go here. This is open enrollment. We need to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I go in there and I'm looking at things, and it's like, the only thing that I have is what's the cheapest? I mean, that's literally and I'm like, oh, well, that's the cheapest. Doesn't really cover anything, but that's the cheapest, so is that something you help people with, as going through that process and figuring out what the best choice is? And, in those situations when they're really not even sure what our options really are, do you help them go through that?
I do. And thanks for asking that question too, because I think a lot of people, obviously because they can enroll themselves in a marketplace plan, I think they maybe assume that, for example, there's an extra charge for using a health insurance broker like myself to get help. And there's not. It's basically no extra charge to get my help. And I often help people with marketplace plans. I honestly, when I talk with somebody, outside of like traditional group benefits, obviously, I look at the marketplace and I ask questions to see if that would be a good fit. Because, the important thing to consider too is sometimes people qualify for nice tax credits on the marketplace. There are pros and cons. And so sometimes what I find is a lot of their doctors aren't in network with the plans on the marketplace, but sometimes they are. And so to answer your question, I do help people often kind of navigate the marketplace, and then I remain a point of contact for them, because it can be a little confusing and a little tricky. There are a few extra hoops you have to kind of jump through, so to speak, when you're on a marketplace plan. It's not horrible. And for the, right circumstance, they can be a good fit.
Nice. And I would say it's not a few little tricks and confusing. I remember when I looked at it, I was like, no, I don't like any of it. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like shopping for the lowest price on Amazon, only you don't get the fun toy at the end,
That's true. Yeah, there are no fun toys with insurance. That's a good point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been really good stuff. Is there anything else that you think that we should be covering that we didn't talk about, that, like, where do people get started from a standpoint of, we've already talked about questions. We've already talked about some of the different options of solopreneur versus having staff and stuff like that. Is there anything that we missed that you think that people should pay attention to, other than give you a call? Because we're going to talk about that. We're definitely got that covered. But before that point, anything else that you think people should be aware of, thinking about?
I do. And I've given thought to this over time. And I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is they can get some coverage in place for a lot less money than they think is possible. It may not check all the boxes for everything they need, but it will be something that's in place. And I think, I've just heard so many stories. And as a physical therapist, I have patients go through things. I've seen the ramifications from, for example, a fracture of the lower leg and a fracture of the ankle, and how a healthy person wasn't able to work for, a long period of time. I think there's something out there that usually works with most people's budget, but I think a lot of people don't know that because they haven't maybe spoken with somebody to find out. And the other side of things is I think a lot of people, they kind of assume that they'll just self-pay for everything and it will be fine. And sometimes that works out okay. I mean, I know there are hospitals with great programs that work with people, but I also think it's worth investigating and just seeing what else is out there.
Well, and I think you just wrapped it up really well. It's worth investigating. It doesn't cost anything to have a conversation. Worst case scenario, you're like, yeah, no, that's still too much.
Right.
Have a nice day. That's the worst case scenario with it. So awesome. So yeah, in a second, I'm gonna tell everybody after you share your link so people can get to hold you and all that kind of stuff, because they really should. And I'm gonna tell everybody right now, I highly recommend reach out to Kelly. I mean, if you have somebody, that's fine. But if you don't, and you've been trying to figure this out by yourself, or you're not sure, or you got somebody and you're not really sure they actually got your best interest in mind, because I know a lot of people have that situation rolling through their head right now. Definitely, you're going to want to reach out to Kelly. So Kelly, in a second, you're going to be able to give out your link and all that kind of fun stuff. But as we wrap up here, this is the Meet Cool People show. So I always like to ask everybody one simple question, which ends up not always being the most simple question, but it is a simple question, I think. What does meeting cool people mean to you?
I really feel like meeting cool people is basically meeting people who have a good heart, but like you can have a good instant connection with, that you feel like, hey, we have something in common, but also like you maybe are trying to work towards the same things. Maybe helping people is one of those. But I also love people who have a great sense of humor. On a side note, I can be pretty goofy. I'm sarcastic and I love to joke around. I feel like life is stressful and sometimes I forget, but if somebody can make me laugh and kind of go back and forth with me with that, I love that. And then when I'm out meeting people like professionally, I just love friendly people. I know that sounds very basic, but most everybody I meet super friendly. Occasionally people are not. It's not common, but those are my cool people.
Now, well said. And it is all funny because we do like the fun people. We like to have fun. I know you and I have joked about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And yes, there are some people that are just not fun, friendly people.
That's right.
Yeah, we've all met them. So, be nice, smile, laugh a little bit, have a good time.
That's
I love
right.
that. I love that you shared that. Thank you so much. So obviously, I already talked about this, but I want everybody to be able to contact you and reach out to you, see if you can help them out. I mean, it doesn't,
Yeah.
like I said, I know what your services are free from a standpoint of if you sign
Right.
up, yes, you get paid at that point. But if you don't,
Yeah.
it doesn't cost anything up front to at least see what's available to see if it's something that fits. So what is the best way for people to actually get a hold of you?
Yes, I would say the easiest way is honestly to visit my website where they can schedule a free consultation. And so the address is kdinsuranceSolutions.com. And it's, there's several spots on there where you can click to find the page to schedule a free consultation. Also on the website are my contact phone numbers as well as my email address. So I'm pretty flexible as far as how people get in touch.
Awesome. All right. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for coming and hanging out today. This has been fun. And for everybody else out there, get out there, have an amazing day. And if you need any help with anything, just reach out and let me know. Take care.
Thanks, Eli. I appreciate you having me.
And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. If you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to followuprockstar.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to followuprockstar.com and we'll see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rockstar.